Hi, and welcome to a new episode of Amplify's podcast, the podcast that helps you and your team maximize your potential. Deborah Gildea, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I'm very good, thank you very much, and thank you so much for inviting me to join you today.
I think you have a very interesting experience to share with the world. You have had interesting roles in the pharmaceutical sectors over the last 20 plus years. Everything you're going to talk about today with me is, of course, your own personal views. You are not talking on behalf of your current or past employers, naturally.
My name's Deborah Gildea. I have had the benefit of living in Asia now for 13 years. Mm-hmm. I would describe myself as an entrepreneur, so somebody who works in corporates but brings a very entrepreneurial approach to enable us to really think differently about how to open up opportunities. As you said, I have wrinkles, so I've been working in the industry now for more than 20 years.
Welcome to the club.
But that's given me lots of opportunities to learn things along the way.
Throughout that journey, so you mentioned 13 years in Asia. We are doing this here in Singapore, where you live now since some time. Before this, you were a general manager in Cambodia.
Yes.
Would you like to tell us a bit more about this experience and how it shaped your, I would say, not even your passion, but it sounds like a calling almost, like something very meaningful to you, which is why I thought it would be great to have you on the show.
So I've been very lucky. I've been working in kind of global health now for about 15 years. Mm-hmm. I moved to Cambodia in 2013, mm-hmm. and my son at the time was about 5 years old. And it was a kind of one particular moment one morning, very soon after we moved there. I went to meet with my team. We were going to see one of the best pediatricians in Phnom Penh. Mm-hmm. And we couldn't park actually close to the clinic. So we ended up walking up the road towards the clinic. And the first thing we met actually was a queue of women sitting outside the clinic on plastic stools, literally inches away from the morning traffic. And each of them had a small child on her lap, and all of the children were attached to an IV drip.
Wow.
And as the sun came up, the flies started to settle along the lines of the drips. And it was a very humbling moment, because I could immediately imagine myself sitting there with my child. And I thought, gosh, if this is better than what most get, we have an awful lot to do to really improve things. And this was a very meaningful experience for me. In Cambodia, actually, the biggest channel is retail pharmacy. So really understanding how that part of the market works, what is available. So really, it was very surprising that even kind of our most basic medicines like antibiotics and some of our respiratory products were actually, the distribution wasn't that strong, particularly into the rural areas. So that was a big challenge for us, how to solve that. But some of the challenges around access, there's a really great model that you could use. So, and we call it the 6 A's of access. Mm-hmm. And it nicely follows the patient journey. So if you start, the first A is awareness. Do people understand that they have a disease that can be either completely solved or managed better by using a medicine?
Right.
The next one is, do you have a solution that actually is acceptable? So does it fit into the healthcare system of the country you're talking about? And does it fit into the lifestyle of the patients that you're trying to reach? Then is it available where they are? Because, practically, how far are people going to travel to get a treatment? And how far should they have to travel to be able to do that? And then once you've actually got it there, it's suitable, they're aware that they need it, can they afford to buy it particularly if it's out of pocket?
Right.
And then particularly if it's a chronic condition, you need to make sure that actually they can adhere to it so they can get it regularly, so they get the full benefit. And when you think about that all the way through, you start to realize actually one pharma company on its own cannot solve all of that. So the final A is alliances. So who do you need to partner with? And those partners could be diagnostic companies, they could be the government, it could be civil society. It's probably going to be a lot of the medical community. So it's really about how do you get everybody engaged around that collective vision and challenge and working together to try and solve it.
That's fantastic. And so, how back to the point, the last A of alliances. You have to deal with so many different parties here, and also internally, of course, within the pharma itself, you still have multiple layers in the organization to align. So, tell us a bit more about how you tackle these kind of things. How do you drive a consensus and a shared vision, or conversely, how do you manage objections and pushbacks and
So having a shared vision is really important, and actually bringing to life the reality, particularly for colleagues who've never had the opportunity to live and work in some of these locations around the world. How do you make it kind of more understandable for them so that they truly understand the amount of need, and also therefore how much do we need to change to make a solution that works? And one of the coolest jobs I did actually was working in an R&D team. And our challenge was how to make both our existing and close-in products more suitable for underserved communities in emerging markets. And we knew that I'm going to give you a respiratory example here.
Sure.
So the gold standard, of course, is that a medicine is inhaled. And over time, that had meant that you went to inhalers, which you had multiple doses, which of course then meant actually it became less and less affordable for this part of the population. So we took and we realized that actually just because the standard of care that we were trying to get to was better, if it was going to cost more than the current standard of care, which was a tablet, it was very unlikely that we would get the level of switch that we needed. So what we did was actually went back to old technology that enabled us to get to much smaller dose. And it was rotacaps. And then how did we use more modern manufacturing techniques to get to a much lower price point, manufacturing cost, so that we could match the price point in the market. But that required a much more FMCG style thinking for us as an organization. And then how you register the product. You're going for big populations in highly populous markets. It's very different from the order of how you might register a product if it's patented and you're going for high income markets, for example. So it requires a lot of different thinking.
I couldn't help myself than thinking that you also have the dilemma of, on one hand, trying to provide care to the largest number of patients as possible around the world, but at the same time, pharmaceutical companies are also here to make a profit out of it.
It's a very tough balance to get to. And also you have to recognize that some of these markets come with challenges which create risk in an organization. And I think the very worst thing that we can do is to come in, do something that's unsustainable, and then go away again. So if you want to have something sustainable, it has to be profitable. It has to create a return for the organization and to reward for the extra complexity that this brings versus just focusing on very developed economies. So I think it is a balance, but I've always run it as a commercial business. What you invest your money in is very different than what you would do for, as I say, a patented product aimed at a high-income country. You do much more market building, trading of HCPs, finding ways to expand distribution into rural areas. So you just spend your money differently, but the goal is still to have a commercially sustainable business.
Okay. So some people may see the role of pharma in these markets to be mostly driven by CSR activities and things like this, but not at all. There's really a clear.
I don't believe that that's actually the right approach.
Right.
In an ideal world, actually, what we want to do is to go in and partner, strengthen the healthcare system, and ideally then raise the whole of the healthcare system in the country so that actually it matures over time. That's got to be the goal, because that's the way you get better healthcare for all.
So you're originally from the UK, right?
Yes.
You have worked and live in Singapore, in Australia, in Cambodia, of course. We talked about this as well. So how does your experience in this part of the world has shaped your perception and your role as a business leader and as a woman in pharma as well?
So I think one of the things that struck me very much when I first came here is that whilst it's definitely getting better, I would still say that gender equity is still a challenge in this part of the world. Mm-hmm. And typically for big pharma, if you want to get to the highest levels, you need to be mobile, and you need to work in roughly probably 2 other countries outside of your home country. And for women who are married, may have young children, this is often in Asian cultures more complicated than it might be in other parts of the world. So I found over time I needed to start these conversations with the female talent in my team, earlier than I would with male talent, so that they had time to start talking to their families, negotiating sometimes with grandparents about just the concept that they might live and work somewhere else.
Right.
So that by the time the opportunity became available, that young woman could compete on equal terms with her male competitors as well.
That's great. On this podcast, we have quite a number of followers, male or female, who are manager, director level. What kind of advice, looking at your own experience, looking at the reality that you just described in this region and as a whole, what kind of advice would you give, whether your younger self or the people who are watching us today?
So younger self, I think I would say one always needs good sponsors in the organization, and people who will give you that opportunity to do something a bit different, but also help you to build the right guardrails around it, particularly if you're trying to do something very different in your organization. I would say also listen until it feels like your ears are going to bleed, because usually if somebody is giving you a no, there will be a very important kernel within that you really need to understand. So you need to ask lots of questions and listen and listen and listen. And then usually you get to what the nub of it is. Pick your battles. Decide what the really important ones are, and never lose your sense of humor. And then for this goes whether you are relatively early in your career or now at the stage that I'm at, is never forget to network, because it's actually sometimes those very strange connections that can give a spark of a new idea or open a new opportunity. And also it gives you a sense of what else is going on outside of your world, because it's in a big corporate, it's very easy to just live in the land of your company. And actually you need that continuous feed from the rest of the world to really sort of keep you thinking and on your toes and new ideas.
Yeah. I really love that. I mean, a lot of it, if not all of it, resonates a lot. And I want to go back to some of them. You say you need to pick your battle. What battle would you say you have picked now for yourself, and what really drives your passion in the industry?
My passion is global health, public health, making a difference. I think there are 2 fundamentals that actually enable a country to move forward. One is education and the other is health. So how lucky am I to have been in a position where I can make a small contribution towards that in some of the countries that either I or the teams that I've worked with have been part of. So that's really, really wonderful to have had that opportunity.
Deborah, it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so very much for being here. We talked about the importance of networking. It's through a network that we had an opportunity to meet and to chat. And I was amazed by your experience, by your passion for market access and for helping communities. So thank you so much for accepting my invitation, and I hope to see you soon again on the show.
Thank you very much. I've really enjoyed being here today.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for watching Amplified's podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and to follow us on LinkedIn, and looking forward to talking to you soon. Thank you. Bye-bye.